This is People and Their Poems, a podcast about the poems that make a difference in our world. People and Their Poems is presented by Orenaug Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us today.
My name is Sandy Carlson. I'm the host of People and Their Poems podcast with the Orenaug Mountain Publishing Company, and we're glad to have everybody here for the February edition of our Poetry Roundtable. And we've got Christine Beck is our featured poet, and we've got a nice group of people ready to have a good old conversation about something we're all very passionate about, which is poetry. So welcome everybody to our roundtable. I'll go ahead and read what I wanted to bring to the conversation today, largely based on current events in the United States. Last evening when we were down in Norwalk, Connecticut for Katie Schneider's book launch and launch of The Northeast Coast, my phone vibrated and it was a news update from the New York Times letting us know that a federal judge ordered the release of little Liam Conejo Ramos, and that was very exciting to hear, and then to go read the ruling is quite something. I strongly recommend it. But when that child had been arrested, I was so bothered by it. And I know from my little bit of Spanish that conejo means bunny, and the little boy had a bunny hat on when he was snatched by ICE. And I got thinking about all the bunny books that are on our shelves still that I'm saving for my daughter, that we read to her when she was a little girl about, you know, being like a bunny and being protected and being brought into the world from a safe place. And I also did a little bit of work on what the word conejo means, and means rabbit, but also the Phoenicians, when they traveled around the Iberian Peninsula, noticed all these little rabbits running around, and the Spain's, the root of that word comes from the word bunny. So we're now living in an allegory where this little boy becomes emblematic of the people being captured by ICE. But this little poem is called Conejo. Bunny, bunny hop, pat the bunny, love you to the moon and back, runaway bunny. Mama will find you. Mama will hold you until you sleep quietly in the home you know. You will hear the quiet of peace, the twinkle of stars, the dream of hope. These are your legacy. You belong here, and we will bring you home, little bunny. Thank you.
Wow.
Very nice. That was lovely.
Thanks. And after I wrote it and I put it up on Instagram, I thought, oh my gosh, what if this little boy never gets home, or if he dies in custody because his health has suffered in the time he's been locked up. But I think the news is that that's about to change. So let's hope.
Just about cried. Came this close to it. Really beautiful. It's such a soft hand for such a strong message. You just said it wonderfully, Sandy.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. Thank you. All right. Christine, would you like to share with us some of your poetry?
I would be happy to. So, hello, everybody. My name is Christine Beck, and for those of you who don't know me, I've been writing poetry since the year 2000. Before that, I was a lawyer and had used a different side of my brain. And my right brain really wanted to be free, so I freed it. I've been very active in the Connecticut Poetry Society. I was one of the poets laureate of the town of West Hartford. So I have a lot of different poetry communities, and I'm happy to add this one to my stable. So I'm going to read 4 poems from my newest chapbook, which is called Given Time, a mother-daughter cancer memoir. And Sharon has heard some of the poems from this book.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's organized in two parts. Part one are poems about my mother's cancer, from which she died at the age of 50. And part two is poems about my own cancer diagnosis a few years ago. And the poems are in a call and response format, which means lines from the first set sometimes show up in the second set, or themes or images will show up in the second set. So it was a lot of fun to kind of do a call and response with these stories. So I'm going to read two poems from the first set and then two from the second set. So this is part one, and it's called Aftermath. While I was sashaying down Telegraph Avenue, hips swinging, syncopated to the Rolling Stones, breasts bobbing beneath my leather jacket, my mother had been lying on a metal gurney, clammy to the touch, lips gray, not knowing. She'd awake to find herself one-sided. I fly home. She wants me there to witness the unveiling of her bandage. The scar runs like a ragged river across her chest. Soon, pills line up like tiny foreign coins. They buy us 7 years, while in her desk she's hidden notes marked funeral instructions. To the core. The lilies on the sill spread a soporific scent, yet you lie awake, ponder in the dreadful dead of night, your left breast amputated after months of biopsies, second opinions, indecision. What goes when flesh goes? The firm freshness of invincibility. What would you be if you were peeled away to just an apple's core? No shining ruddy skin, no pungent flesh exuding golden juice, just a toughened stem, pale yellow, a handful of black shining seeds, keepers of the buried truth. So I'm going to read congratulations, which was what I was told after I finished radiation. Congratulations, they say at the end of 20 days of radiation. Congratulations, you're done. But what is done, you wonder? Your skin brittled bright red, the shadow of the metal eye rolled back into its lair. No cake, balloons, no goodie bags, just two white-suited technicians who scan their sheet for the next woman who will enter, rest her arms out of her faded Johnny, expose her flesh to flashing red lights, the slight hum that signals radiation. As she holds her breath for 20 seconds to force her lungs to shield her heart. How can you shield your heart? No way to judge success, no test to take, no imaging to reveal a negative. Just wait. Deflated, like a birthday balloon loses its lift, drifts despondent to the floor, deflated in the aftermath of what was once a celebration. Congratulations, they say. And then I'm going to end with bequest, which is a term that's used in a will for something that you want a specific person to have after you die. Bequest. I bequeath to you the scent of apples on the trees in the back pasture, the bees that swarm the fallen fruit, the juice that seeps into the earth. I bequeath to you the color of the evening sky, the dip and swirl of starlings, alighting for the night, their screech and chatter as they rustle into rest. I bequeath you, too, my half-empty perfume bottles, the memories of where and when each scent lingered on my skin, became as much my signature as pen and ink on pale blue parchment. Also, My pen collection, the ones exhausted of their usefulness, the ones with zest to grapple with an empty page, the words they wrote that mingled with the ones they haven't met. I bequeath you these, my soul's embrace, my signature in scent and rhyme, the apples printed on my childhood dress of white piqué, its sway in evening's breeze. Thank you for listening.
Oh, it's wonderful.
What a great lines, Christine. I loved awake to find herself one-sided. An interesting way to say that. And I also loved what goes when the flesh goes. That question I thought was just really profound. Really very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Yeah, I used what goes when flesh goes in my second set of poems as well. So I echoed that line.
It's a great question. I'll think about that for a while. Seriously.
Also, the imagery of a vulnerable woman exposing her flesh to strangers, people in their scrubs, whatever, and the vulnerability of that speaks volumes. You know that the humanity of that flesh kind of gets lost in the shuffle as you become a science problem. Yeah, and the image of the half-empty perfume bottles too resonated. I still have my mom's, you know. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. Yeah.
I really got the image of assembly line. It's yeah, very, very powerful, Christine. And I'm so glad you're a poet now. I worked for lawyers for quite a few years.
Yeah, I'm in a better place. I'm in a better place, Isabell.
Yeah,
yeah, I am.
And Telegraph Avenue and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a student at Berkeley.
Me too. So.
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Margie, I'm glad that you could stay to hear this. Thank you very much. I see you're in your car. Sure, you're going places, doing things.
Well, I figured let me just drive to the place that I have to go to next. That way I can stay and do this as long as possible. But I did want to say I loved the and I think it was the first poem. You talked about how pills were like coins, and they it was like a type of currency. And I have like I don't know, I hate taking pills. Like I don't like the feeling of it in my throat and all this. So it's like such a negative like connotation that I have with pills. And I love that you put almost like a more positive, somewhat more positive spin on a pill, and that it's like it is currency, and that like it does allow you to like live longer, and it gave you time with your mom, which it's like almost like something that's like looked down at. It's like almost precious at that point. So I loved that, and I loved the overall theme of the poetry. My brother went through cancer a few years ago, and it's such a unique experience for every single person. But yet there are still things, like a line that runs through for everybody's experience. And like, I know like the poem you wrote, like congratulations. I remember him going through similar feelings of, people looking at him like he was a hero for having gotten through all of these things. And he wasn't attached to any of the things that people were saying to him, essentially. And he's like, I'm still, even though I'm done with it, I'm still in it, and they're like consequences. Yeah. So yeah, I really loved all of it. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for writing those beautiful poems.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you so much.
Your poems really resonated with all of us. And your line where you say that, I bequeath you my collection of pens also deeply resonated with me. They were all very beautiful. And as I always say, whenever I join this group each month, I get to learn from all of you as to how you can dignify every bruised and battered experience of your life through the form and medium of poetry. There was a particular question which was lingering in my mind as I was listening to your poems, because it's such a specific experience with the big C, as I call it. So I wanted to ask you, ma'am, and others can also chime in. How is the relationship with terminal illness viewed in American society at large? Because we see it as an advanced, medically advanced society. But how do you think terminal illness really affects people and society at large, in your opinion, as you see it?
You mean the experience of cancer? Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
and how people treat you, and how is empathy exchanged among people, because it's a very difficult experience to
So
share.
yes, it is. So let me answer you because it just occurred to me what you were really asking me. So, of all the people that treated me, and they were all lovely, every single person that treated me was lovely, kind, compassionate, but only one person said to me, "How do you feel about all this?" Only one. Nobody else wanted to hear how I felt.
Wow.
And I think that that is the compartmentalization that caregivers need to do in order to be able to do their job.
Themselves.
So, they can't
Yes.
afford it to ask you how you feel. But I was shocked. It happened to be a nurse, and I was just shocked when she asked me that question because it was the first time anybody had ever asked me. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up.
Mm.
Good point.
Interesting.
It's
And I think Sandy, somebody was raising the issue of like, well, what do people say? Oh no, I guess it was Margie. What do people say to you? Like, oh, you're so lucky it's over, and everybody's different. Honestly, in my own small poetry group, 3 of us went through breast cancer in the last year,
Yeah.
and there's 10 of us all together. That's an incredible number. The only person who wrote about it or talked about it is me. The other 2 women did not write about it or talk about it. And there's room for everything, right? We have a big enough tent that people can deal with their experience. It didn't happen, it's over, forget about it, we're not going to talk about it. That's okay. That's one person's, response to it. But for me, particularly because my mother died of breast cancer over 40 years ago, it was really important for me to honor her with my own experience. And that's what I feel this book has done. I feel in many ways it's an honoring of my mom.
Beautiful.
there's
Ending that
so
one
many.
poem on congratulations, they said, was for me, just like, whoa, whoa. And I think I haven't had a lot of, luckily, experience with cancer. But that one was like, said, okay, Sharon, you should really think about what you say to people when they go through this experience. So anyway, thank you for that, because it kind of gave me a different way to interact, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, and somebody said recently in a poem that somebody brought to one of my other groups, the poem worked its way to don't give me the cliches, ask me how I feel, which is exactly the point that I just made.
Yeah.
It seems to me that cancer is so prevalent and becoming more and more so. And I think people have to compartmentalize it in a lot of ways in order to deal with it. But there's a book that there's an anthology that I contributed to this last year from Wildside Press, and it's called 1 in 8, and it's about not only women, a couple of men who have our poetry on breast cancer, and you might want to look it up. It's very powerful.
Thank you.
And yeah.
I just wanted to add one last comment. When you were talking about people not talking about it, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and he was coming to the conversation from a Jewish perspective and how people didn't talk about their survival or their experience of the Holocaust, that it was something you didn't talk about.
Okay.
And I came at it from a different perspective. I had multiple great uncles who fought in that war, and when they came home, they never talked about it. And so I was thinking about, and it's an unfinished thought, but the degrees of trauma and what it asks, those experiences ask of us individually when you're in it alone, because it is an individual battle, whether you're in an army or in a chair in a room with others receiving chemo, or you're on your own, and I just, so this is a thought I'm going to put on the back burner, is what is it about the trauma that we insulate it with silence, as a way to get on with things, and as a part of that compartmentalization. And my mom had lung cancer, and she was happy with the care she received up to the end. And went to see her. My folks lived in Pennsylvania before she passed, and they had a little cabin in the woods. I went down to see her, and there's this painting on the wall that everything that was in our family was handmade or was handed down. There were just new things didn't arrive on the wall. I said, Mom, where'd this come from? And she said, I told the nurse I liked it, so she took it off the wall and gave it to me. There was nothing more they could do for my mom at that point. The painting made her happy, so she took it home. But she was the kind of person who could elicit that kind of a response from people. But so thank you for sharing that. I know poetry is a gift, but poetry about something so personal is a precious gift. So thanks a bunch, Christine.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you.
Hey, Margie, you want to read next?
Sure. Yeah. Kind of within a theme of like daughters and mothers. This poem's called Vegan's Lament. So here we go. I do my best. I really try. But then I have melt in my mouth, chewy, delicious cookies with eggs and real butter, the kind that binds, the kind that dissolves. And it doesn't matter that it's not vegan. It tastes like the excitement of powder and sugar coming out of cabinets, the clink of measuring cups. It tastes like the shade of pink, my mother's cheeks, the back of her hand wiping her forehead, flour spreading across the edges of her hairline, working arms of lean muscle and sinew, circle and fold, mix to blend, dry and wet into something united. It tastes like beep, 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 rush and wave of warm vanilla, urgent feet pounding downstairs, hands reaching, grabbing, dropping, too hot. She shouts, they need to cool. It tastes like watching the Titanic cookie sink into ice cold milk, splash, and turn mush at the bottom. You tilt the glass back and sudden assault upon lips and nose. I still try not to eat meat, try not to eat dairy, but sometimes I submit to decadence. That's it.
It was great.
Just absolutely terrific. You
Thank
have
you.
you have worked
Thank
with
you.
a very specific detail about the process of making a chocolate chip cookie, and I love the sensory detail that you put into your poem about the clink of the measuring cups and the spoons, and somebody who's upstairs in their bedroom can hear all that going on downstairs, and they know what's coming. And I really, really liked that resonance of the sound. So thank you for that. That was very sweet.
Thank you.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. No pun intended.
Yeah. That's kind of good though.
I love the Taste the Excitement, Taste Like Excitement. That whole series of Taste Like was amazing. The cold milk was so cool. You had so many, like Christine said, sensory things in there. But that idea, Taste Like Excitement, was just like, you got me right there. It was so good. Just really good.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know what? I have a friend who's vegan, and my son-in-law is Hindu, and his mother is very, very much, she's not vegan. The thing, they do dairy, but not eggs, or that, and because milk does not kill the animal that it comes from. They revere, respect all life. I can see Prithvijeet nodding. And it's such a, yeah, the thing about the butter that's real. Anyway,
So the image of the sound effects, all those sensory details, but all the effort that goes into making a cookie, and it was you captured it so beautifully. I this the all the love in the making of the cookie, and as somebody who's vegan now, before I had a colleague. She was brand new to our school, so I made her some banana bread, and I brought it to her, and she looked at me and she said, "I can't eat that." But gosh, what I do, I didn't know. And it was a moment that I'm glad I experienced, because what it made me realize is it's the love that goes into the making is far more important than the two eggs and the stick of butter,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'd rather have that thing that isn't correct, right? Because it came from a place of love. And I think that's what's the important thing.
Yeah.
And I've never made that mistake again at work, but yeah, and so you made me think of that, and how much love goes into the making of something for somebody else, to honor that and to be a part of it, and to just throw like little kids can do that. They can just get the cookie crumbs on their nose and the milk, the whole thing. It's just such a beautifully evocative poem. So thank you very much.
The line that you submit to decadence was like everything. You concluded your poem on a high. And it makes me think that it ties very well to Miss Christine's poem that she read in the last round table. It is also kind of a metaphor for desire. The things we desire, and, we kind of how to kowtow and, draw lines and our own knots and bundles around it. And it was really so very well executed. Like I'm telling you all, I learned from all of you how to execute, your ideas with such lucidity and such passion for words. So really, thank you so very much for that poem.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind.
Well, you do the same for us, Prithvijeet. So why don't you read next?
Thank you. The poem I'm going to read, first of all, I'm so sorry, I have to introduce myself. My name is Prithvijeet, and I come from the historic cultural Indian city of Lucknow. And as always, I'm very lucky to join this roundtable each month and learn from all of you, and also, bask in the warmth and glow of all of your poetic creations.
Yeah.
So the poem I'm going to read today, it's a poem that's fragmentary. It's as if I was trying to present my ideas in a more clipped fashion than usual, and I wrote it 10 years back. Now, off late, there was a trend starting in January that we were kind of celebrating the year 2016 in our own ways, throwback to 2016, since we've completed a decade since then. And but we being poets, we cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening all around. And in India as well, the deaths of Renee Nicole Godin, especially Mr. Alex Piretti, has affected all of us. Also because there is a parallel to how protesters and people who are trying to fight against fascism in our own nation, which has turned out to be nationalist to a very dangerous degree, something which we had rolled back in the past 2 decades, 2.5 decades. So I feel that the world is once again being hounded by right-wing fascism everywhere. And
Yeah.
and I wrote this poem in 2016 when I felt the world was going to hell. And I was coming back from college, and I collected my ideas and wrote the poem as soon as I reached home. So this is a poem. It's like a summation of all those ideas. It's called Collage. Bellies protruded out, a lithograph in blood. Below the waist, fatal consummation. Forged passes and ports, a promised land boomeranged, ethnicities crying foul. One dark finger and one plea, commissioned gunshots. One shriek became the shrine of evanescence. Boyish charm, rugged cheeks, symbolic at 18. Boyish charm, rugged cheeks, symbolic at 18. Warrior temperaments and the promised land revealed. Nighttime disturbance, daytime defiance. Your chance, my demand. At last, a failed misery. The streets are gallows, lofty with dead swallows. The streets are gallows, lofty with dead swallows. A dark landslide where chastened doves brood. Thank you.
What a beautiful, strong ending. Where chastened doves brood. That is really beautiful. So many images throughout your poem of violence and desolation. Yeah, desolation, I would say. It's very moving. Your words together are very, very moving. Thank you.
I loved Promised Land Boomeranged. There's so many where you turn, even in a short line, you turn the corner from what should have been good to going downhill. And I loved commissioned gunshots. Somehow that hit me as, whoa. And your charge, my demand. I mean, it's really a very, very beautiful, very powerful. It sort of hits you like bullets, this poem, the way you formatted it. It's like little pieces of shrapnel that keep coming at you. It's really good.
Thank you. That was my intention when I wrote it. It was because until and unless you actually imagine violence up close and personal, you can only imagine it from a long distance. And the fact that I use this imagery, which you all have responded very favorably to, is because I wanted to, somehow from a vantage point of distance and not having that experience, enshrine the fear and the dread that those people feel when they are faced with violence of any kind. And the most extreme is, of course, gun violence, or when you use the baton to, rip away somebody's ribs. Violence of a kind which can be fatal without you even knowing it. And which is exactly what is happening even 10 years, 20 years down the line, and which is what happened to so many protesters in Minneapolis and elsewhere. It's happening to people in Delhi who are protesting against governmental inequities. It's happening in states which are asking for statehood back home, for women's rights. And the crawl back into right-wing fascism is staggering to a degree where, people are discussing that maybe things can go back to how it was perhaps in Nazi Germany, because that is the kind of imprint we are getting. So we are very, very concerned about how the tide may change from one of progressivism to one of absolute, fascist destruction.
It's terrifying that it's across so many countries right now, that it's across the world, and that it seems like everything is headed in that one direction. It's very scary.
And it's so exactly appropriate for right now. I mean, I have an English student, a Mexican woman who doesn't have papers and so forth, and she's been in this country for 20, 24 years probably. And it's just, and I talk to immigrants, and it's all their dream of coming to the US and having a good life has boomeranged. It's totally, they can't go home because they may get killed. They can't,
Yes.
and what can they do to stay here? It just, yeah.
And I think the succinct lines, warrior temperaments and promised land defined, that's what's going on, and the thing that really got me was the streets are gallows. They are exactly that, and by design, so this is archetypal human behavior, sadly. How do we break that pattern? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, that was lovely. I also really loved the line of the streets being gallows. And there was like a few lines in the poem that you repeated, which I thought were just I don't have a paper and pen to write down my thoughts right now, but I just thought they were so appropriate to repeat because like somebody mentioned earlier, a lot of the wording it is almost like bullets being shot at the reader. And obviously like real bullets are being shot at real people on the like in these streets. And I just love that, like you were talking about how you're seeing it from a perspective of being so far away from the violence that's specifically happening in like Minneapolis and stuff. But your poem, it doesn't feel far away. It feels so close. Like you feel like you're right in it. And you do bring a sense of almost like claustrophobia around the violence happening, where it's like kind of like closing in on you. And but you do it in such a delicate way. So it honestly, that was a lovely poem. And if you're sending it out to people, I would love to also receive it. And I just wanted to mention that unfortunately I do have to get going in a few minutes. So I'm sorry if I kind of exit out of here before the next person starts speaking. So I just wanted to give that heads up. I'm sorry.
Margie, you are a treasure, and I'm so glad you're a part of our roundtable and that you drove to be where you got to do your next thing so that you could be a part of this conversation. It just makes my whole day, you know? I mean, I love these conversations on Zoom, but it says a lot, and we're just grateful to have you here. You bring a lot to the conversation.
Thank you so much. I thank you for setting this up. I'm excited for every time that we get to do something like this, and it's really needed. I mean, obviously, with everything going on, it's really needed to have community in that way. So I appreciate it.
All right, Sharon, do you want to read next?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd love to. So this is a poem I've been writing over the last couple of weeks, and it was from a prompt by Patrick Otuma in a workshop I attended with him in December. And there are two quotes in it. So I want to tell you what those were before I start it. One is from the movie Field of Dreams, and it's excerpts from a speech by James Earl Jones. And that was from 1989. And the other are lines from a poem called America that was written in 1921, America by Claude McKay. So this is called 13 Ways of Looking at the United States. 1, rafting the Grand Canyon, sacred rock walls, slice of blue sky, riding the Colorado in silence and river sound. 2, music flows from her, birthplace of the blues, gospel, jazz, rock and roll, soul, hip hop. 3, where aspiration often exceeds reality, wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, then 85 more years of slavery. 4, her pendulum swings wide and fast, elects Barack Obama, then Donald Trump. 5, land of Big Macs and macrobiotics. 6, soft dunes of Cape Cod, a thin place where ocean touches sky and the soul breathes easy. 7, born in blood, European settlers slaughtered Native Americans to take their land. 8, Alaska's tundra, Arizona's deserts, Colorado's mountains, Florida's Everglades. 9, America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It has been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. 10. Some traveled west by wagon train as children, then lived to see men walk on the moon. 11. Land of plenty. Too much stuff next door to not enough to eat. 12. Land of invention, innovation, inequality, good intention, contradiction. 13. Although she feeds me bread of bitterness, I love this cultured hell that tests my youth. Her vigor flows like tides into my blood, giving me strength erect against her hate. Her bigness sweeps my being like a flood. Darkly, I gaze into the days ahead and see her might and granite wonders there like priceless treasures sinking in the sand.
I'll just quickly say that that was such a great poem. I loved the line of like the pendulum swinging from, you know, Obama to Trump. And I loved how you go and each one you talk about like the beauty and the like what's the word I'm thinking of, how there's so many different places in America, the diversity of America, right, and its landscape and its people, and then in the next line you're talking about how, you know, we're the land of the plenty, but we're also the land of not enough, you know. And yeah, it's just so many contradictions, and honestly just so accurate. So
Yeah, Sharon, I really like how you've revised this poem since the first version that I heard, and I think it's you have a lot of strong voices in here, which I think is really good. You've added a couple of voices, and I think that deepens the poem. It gives it more breadth, and yeah, when we feel like we've gone all over the country with you, which is pretty cool when you consider that you only had 13 verses to do it in. So nicely done.
Thank you, Christine.
Right on, right on. Yep, yep. The diversity and done a really good job.
Well, it was hard to stand back from, I wanted to stand back from how I've been feeling about what's going on today. I wanted to stand back far enough to try to look at a longer view of how I see the country. So,
And as a poetry enthusiast, I think your poem and its title was in the rich tradition of one of the most famous poems of all times, as 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird by
yes,
Wallace Stevens, if I'm not wrong.
yes.
Correct.
So for me, it was most interesting when you spelled out the title, and of course, the irony is not lost on us that while the landscape is so diverse and so beautifully, preserved till this date, anywhere, not just in America, but anywhere, it's the human footprint that creates kinds of frictions and divisions, even while rooted in those very beautiful landscapes. So I think those are the forms and the ironies that only poetry can, rustle up and bring to the surface so succinctly, and you did that. So thank you so very much.
Yeah, Sharon, the erasing blackboard image made me think of how temporary learning is and understanding. And I just, as a teacher, that resonated with me. And I thought there's a way in for anybody hearing this poem. But when you talked about the wagon trains of kids going out west, I actually have a strange personal connection to that. And it kind of captures all the contradictions. So my family's Methodist, right? And my mom, the Methodist, went to learn to become a pediatric nurse at the Foundling Hospital in New York City, which is run by the Sisters of Charity. And they helped impoverished women become moms and take care of the kids and take care of kids who didn't have moms that were left. But after my mom passed away, I was actually trying to find a copy of her yearbook. And I did some research on the Foundling Hospital. hospital would send those kids out west as labor, you know.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
The array of contradictions that you capture and in the poem, I live it every day in the classroom, and that story. And my mother didn't go to the Foundling Hospital and learn to become a nurse to create a cheap labor force for America. She was helping babies, and so that also that we don't always know the whole picture. But you read this one at Faith's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just made me stop and reflect and think and do that kind of technicolor tour in my imagination of our diverse landscape and the diverse people who populate it and what we do to and for each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
How about it, Isabel? You want to read for us?
Okay, okay. And hopefully this will be something pretty much entirely different. Uh, I thought about reading something a little yeah, a little different, but okay, I got this the epigraph is in Spanish, and I have no idea where it came from or where I got it. But I'll read it to you and then I can translate a little bit. Uno podría componer una autobiografía con cada una de las comidas memorables de su existencia, y acaso resultaría más interesante que las autobiografías habituales. Con toda honestidad, ¿qué prefería usted leer? ¿La descripción de un primer beso o la de una col rellena hecha a la perfección? And so what this is saying is that one could compose an autobiography like all from each one of the most memorable meals in your existence. And maybe it would result in an interesting, more interesting autobiography than the habitual ones, the regular ones, right? With all honesty, which would you prefer to read? A description of the first kiss or a cabbage, a stuffed cabbage done to perfection? So I just love this. I just love this quote. All right, so the title of my piece is Beso, Kiss, or Stuffed Cabbage, an autobiography of memorable meals. Where in the world did I get this prompt? There's a lot I can write about it, though. The prompt says to be totally honest and say which you would rather read about, a first kiss or a stuffed cabbage done to perfection. I was trying to ignore the first about the kiss. My first kiss with a guy, not a butterfly kiss from my grandmother, was gross. I'd much prefer a stuffed cabbage. And because I've been a vegetarian for many years, that's another reason I'd rather go with the stuffed cabbage. But I realize I'm thinking more of the physical, eating stuffed cabbage or being kissed, probably the French type, which might involve some digestive juices and could go in 100 different directions. And cabbage is not really the best for A blood type, but Napa cabbage, stuffed with rice, loaded with currants and pine nuts, I'm not sure I've ever had a kiss that could beat that. No names mentioned. And I'm just reading news bites about the problems in Napa, California with immigrants and ICE. And frankly, I'd love to see those masked agents suffocated with cabbage stuffed up their noses and gagging their mouths, the cabbage tightly bound to their faces by their own masks. A kiss of death to the fear of bullies. Is this autobiographical enough? Okay. Well, I wound up being a little political. I sort of forgot about that.
Don't hold back, Isabell. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's the old Berkeley. It's the old Berkeley stuff.
It was both, lighthearted and fun, and also, of course, had an undercurrent of something very serious, which is so it had I would say it had a turn at the end when we go to the officers and your wish that they get uh, put in their place by a stuffed cabbage, which is really interesting. And then in the middle of your poem, you have this little snippet of, your personal experience with a first kiss, which I thought was very interesting. It kind of got dropped in there, and then it got left.
Yeah.
Got,
Well,
yeah.
I didn't want to get too deep into that.
Oh, you didn't. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that also captures the experience, right? We're living in our art, we're living in our memory, we're responding to a prompt, and reality is right there. We process our experiences and what's happening around us in the immediate world. And sometimes and we process memory and all of that. And sometimes one intrudes on the other. I found that intersection of those two pieces in the poem to be relatable, that our current reality doesn't let us look away for very long.
I agree, Sandy. I love that, all the turns in it. And the ending was just like amazing. You had me laughing at the beginning, and the ending it was like a slap awake in a good way. The epilogue, I thought, detracted a little from it. In other words, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. The poem is so strong on its own.
Right.
Really is. And it is, as Christine said, both funny and at the same time has a really strong message.
I think I could leave out the epigram, and just because I tried to say at the beginning, the prompt is, I explained what the prompt is, but it's too long, and I kind of repeat myself with it, but yeah.
Well, that's just my opinion, Isabell, and I don't know that much.
I totally agree with you. And I've been trying to figure out, how to either, I don't know, just delete it entirely, but explain it in the first piece. Any suggestions you have, I'd appreciate, because
I don't know. It's 99% of that poem is wonderful. So I wouldn't worry too much about that 1%.
Isabell, when you sort of explained it to us, and that rhetorical question, which would you rather hear about, a delicious meal or a traditional biography? When I think back to that original question and where you went to with ice and how you'd serve up that meal to those ICE agents, I don't think you need it in Spanish. I think you could even just put a rhetorical question at the top of that poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it just makes that whole serving up the meal piece that comes out of that even more powerful at the end,
Okay.
I mean, wow. Serving dinner up somebody's nose is quite an image. No, it's great, but it speaks to the frustration.
Yeah.
Also, we can't forget our humanity. It's not what they're doing to us and to our neighbors. There's a humanity and a humor in what you're saying. I mean, there's that old expression, stuff it up your nose. When we were kids, we would say that. So it recalls something of what you say to somebody who disgusts you, and It would be cabbage. It would be hilarious. I think.
And it's got the basics. Sex and food. Which comes first, right?
There you go.
I don't know.
Well, thank you, everybody, for jumping in today. Floyd here says, aren't I interesting too?
This has been People and Their Poems, presented by Orenaug Mountain Publishing. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to check the show notes for more information about this episode. Visit OrenaugMountainPublishing.com for more information about our services and writing opportunities. And visit peopleandtheirpoems.net to learn more about the podcast.